Alrighty, we are using the FreeCAD link branch. Link is in the description. We are going to make this part, so let's get started. First off, we need a plan. I'm seeing a few main shapes. So this one here from the top view, that's one shape that we'll need to sketch. And then this one down here, this overall shape. I think from the front view, I don't think there's actually much that we need as far as sketching. I do think that I want to make a plane probably here, or here actually, because I have this 4.25 and that is an important dimension. So we'll get there. First off, let me move this apart off to the side and make a new part here. I can make a new body or just click create sketch. So I'm going to start with that top one here. So I'll click on the XY plane. You can see it says top up here. And what I'm going to do is make a centered rectangle. Unfortunately, you cannot type in the dimensions. You have to make it and then dimension it. But you can just click on these, click D, insert dimension. And I'm in millimeters. I need to change that to imperial decimal. Or I could do US customary, but I'm going to say decimal because I like decimals. So this should be 5.25, and then this width should be 2.625 from the drawing. Now this is obviously not actually what we need, because we need to make an arc in here. So that needs to be 5.875. So I will make a arc by 3 points, pick here, here, and here. And I could do it on the other side. I guess I'll do it, might as well. Alternatively, we could just do half of it and we can do a mirror everything later. Why don't we do that? Let's do that line there. Is that defined? Looks like it is. Okay, so I can make these two lines construction. So right click construction or GN. And now we just need to, okay. Okay, I'm not sure what those dimensions or those constraints were doing. Something got weird. This is what you get with FreeCAD sometimes, and we don't know that radius actually. So what I'm going to do is make a line, and because I know that dimension from there to the origin, that is 5.875 divided by 2. And now that is defined, and this just needs to be equal. And what else are we missing? I can make that construction, by the way. This is not defined. Okay, so that needs to be on that. And we should be all set now. So I can close this and see, because I left that line in the middle, I can just pick on this right here. So I'll click pad, and that needs to be, I don't know. Actually, I'm getting way ahead of ourselves. I'm actually going to use that last, and I'm going to do an intersect feature. If you don't know what I'm talking about, wait till the end, or skip till the end. So I want to make this view here now, and similarly I'm going to make everything all in the one sketch, and you'll see why. So let's do those circles. There's going to be 3 circles. And we have lines that are tangent. Looks like this one's not tangent, so you can click on the line and the arc, or I prefer the point and the arc. T for tangent. And let us make those symmetric, and same with these, symmetric right here. Now, this is probably way too big, so let's start giving some dimensions. So we have 5.5 whole, 1.25 is that counter bore, and then we only know a height, we don't know a dimension for that outer arc. So here, 0.5, 1.25. And let's make that way smaller. We know this is the same width, 2.65, or I could delete that and I can say external geometry, and I want we'll save that line. And if I scroll down here, you see it made a vertex, a point. So I can click on that point and this point and make them coincident. And that gives me the same thing. So now if this sketch here changes, say I'll make that 5, it's really big. See, our other sketch also updates. So I'll undo that and refresh. And we will continue. So I need to make a line here and here. I will make that construction. Once again, because we're not given this diameter, we're given this height. So I know that needs to be 4 inches. And I'm actually going to do pretty much the same thing with that rib in the middle. And I'm actually going to make a line down here because there's this 0.25 right here, and you can see the dotted line right there, because that needs to go all the way across. So later we will basically extrude this area right there. So I need to make provisions for that. So we know this height is 1.5, and then this is a full round radius. So I'm just going to keep it as a circle and make 2 tangent lines there and there. And then I'll add in this 14 and this 16. And also this 0.5 rib at base is important. So let's do this here to finish off the overall shape. So that's 14. And when you do an angle, a lot of times it makes it kind of puts it way out in space, so you have to scroll out and find it. So now I'll make these lines. This one made a tangent, this one did not. So you can make that tangent. And it's always good to drag around and make sure that it's actually tangent at the point, because what can happen sometimes is here, for example, that's tangent, but that's not coincident. So that's why I like to click on the point. So now it's tangent to the line at that point. Hopefully that makes sense. Anyways, this needs to be 1/2 inch, and these need to be symmetric. And then this line, that's actually not what we want. I want this line to go up to the top. So I can click not in there. I can click extend edge, and I want to extend it to there. It's not being happy, so yeah, it's not being happy. So actually I think I know what I need to do is delete that. Sometimes it doesn't show a coincident relationship when there is one there. So you can click on the point and click delete. And now, okay, there we go. There's what we want. So now I want that to be constrained onto that arc. And I also want it to be constrained onto the axis. So now if I try to drag around, that is vertical, regardless of where I put it. So that is all set now. And then this line, we know that distance should be 1.5. That's totally not what we wanted. So let's make that smaller. Something's not happy. I didn't make these two lines symmetric, so let me do that. And that should help us out a bit. Let me just undo this. It's freaking out a little bit, but it's sort of my fault. So let me just keep adding these dimensions so fewer things can move. So I think that is the last one we need to define. So let me carefully move that, and now this dimension, or this angle, should be 16 degrees. Great. So now you'll notice that I did not convert this to reference just until now. That is because I find that, see, I can't pick that anymore. I think that's just because of how it orders the lines. It puts driving lines first. But anyways, and I can right click and I'm gonna trim this just because I don't actually need that circle at all. So that took a while, but we are finally done. And now we don't need to do any more sketching, I believe. So we have this shape, however it's in the middle. So actually what we're going to do, like I said before, this 4.25 is a very important dimension because that gives us this right here, and that is where this main shape, that's this line right there. So then I can offset, or not offset, I can extrude this way, and yeah, so I need a point, or I need a datum plane right there, and I want offset in the z direction, and the z direction just means normal to, it's z relative to when you were looking at the plane. So 4.25 divided by 2. And if you're ever, these are stuck, you don't really know what to do, you can just click in one of these and use your scroll wheel, and it will kind of show you what it's doing. And that goes for any feature. You can click in here, and if you scroll up or down, it will kind of dynamically show you how that is affecting things. So we have that plane. I'm going to hide all of this again. You can select and hit spacebar. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to create another sketch. And I know I said we're done sketching, but I'm just going to create a carbon copy. So I'll click on this sketch, that's what we want to duplicate, and it just makes a derived sketch, and all of these are orange now, and what that means is that they are linked to that original sketch. So if I change a dimension in there, it will update in here as well. So that's one way of doing it. Technically another way of doing it, so I can undo that sketch. I could also make a binder, or a subshape binder. So I could click on that, say subshape binder, and you could do placement, whoops. You could change the placement to be 4.25 divided by 2, right there. And then in that case, you wouldn't even need to make that datum plane. However, you would need to say I'm actually not sure how to make those internal faces, so there's probably a way of doing it. I don't know how to do it exactly, so sorry about that. So I'll delete that, and once again, we will just duplicate this sketch, and I can hide that plane now. So we have a sketch right here, whoops, right here. So I can offset the main shape this way, and that doesn't matter, and I'll show you later why it doesn't matter what distance we do there. So I will do this, 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 and this. I will pad, and I'll just scroll until it's plenty far past this line. I'll OK that, and you might be a bit confused, but just bear with me here. I'm going to hide that just so I can make things a little easier. And now I want to do this rib in the middle, right here, this shape, and I want to extrude that the other way. So I'll click on that, and I'm holding Control. Whoops, holding Control to select multiple. So we want to reverse that, and I will say up to face, and then for the face I will pick our center. So it's okay that, hide that origin again, and still might be a bit confusing, but you can see I'm able to reuse these features, the sketch. So I'll hide that again one more time, and I will pad this, and we can see that we have 3.5 given, so we need to extrude that in this opposite direction, and then for the distance we'll just do some math. We'll just have the thing help us out. So 4.25 divided by 2 minus 3.5 divided by 2. And I said minus 2. There we go. And you don't have to add parentheses. I mean, obviously, it just uses order of operations. So add parentheses if needed, but in this case, we don't need to do that. So I can OK that now. Another way of doing that is that we could have just made a datum plane and offset it 3.5 divided by 2, which you can see is right in line with that. So there's multiple different ways of doing it, but, whoops, delete that. Multiple different ways of doing it, but it just kind of depends on how you think about it and how you look at it. So now we have these shapes. We have looks like pretty much this overall shape. We have some extra material here, but we're going to cut that off later. Now we have this hole that is going through, but we don't have this counter bore, which is defined over here. 1.25, and that is 0.5 deep. So pretty much the last thing, aside from adding that fillet and then mirroring it and trimming it all off. One more time, I will show that sketch. Actually, we don't need to show that sketch. I'm going to select this face, create a sketch, and I will make one more carbon copy of that same sketch. I'll close that out. Okay, so I went back and I messed around with it and I figured out why we were getting that issue. So when we made this first sketch, if I double click on this and edit, we are looking at the right view here. And so I'll close out of there. You know, we were looking at this side over here. Now this face that we just tried to make the sketch on, you know, that once we look normal to that, we're looking on the left side. So that's reversed. It's flipped around. We rotate around this way, so it's flipped. So we can still create a sketch. However, basically we need to actually exit and then say map reversed. And now when we look at that sketch, we're looking at the right view over here. So now I can hit carbon copy sketch 1 and there's no issues. So we can close out of there and now we can proceed with what we were initially trying to do. So I could pick on this and I could use the pocket command and I could cut into that body. So maybe another way of doing it is that I could show that sketch and I could create external geometry of that arc. That's one way of doing it, and I just want to make sure that is defining. It doesn't say, yeah, okay, it doesn't say its reference. Oh, there we go, defining. That's what I meant. So now I can say reversed, additive, subtractive, and that's 0.5 deep. And you notice I clicked pad and it still does it. You probably want it to be a pocket because it defaults to subtractive and then it'll make your model a lot less confusing later. So there we go. That's one way of doing it. So skip forward if you're not interested, but if I do it this way, 3.5 divided by 2, if I did make that plane earlier, so now I can create this sketch and I can totally create a carbon copy now, and that should not give me any issues. There we go. And now, you know, so I could have used this plane, and for this pad over here, from here to here, I could have put it up to that plane, and then I could have put that sketch and selected that contour right there. Pick this part and say pocket, rather than needing to, where we had to project it and mess around with that. So anyways, different ways of doing it, but it all ends up being the same thing at the end of the day. It just depends on what you want to do and what you think works the best. So we have to add in some fillets. So what you can do is pick on these. It's a bit finicky. I can't get it. I've always had issues trying to pick on edges. I'll pick these two and I can click fillet, or you could click on fillet first and then pick the edges. It's up to you. And this should be 0.5 inch. Okay, that. So now I believe we have everything. And our model obviously looks very far off, but I can click on this pad, and rather than being additive or subtractive, I'm going to click intersecting. And this dimension really does not matter. I know the dimension before, but honestly I'm going to make it 5. Because all that does is it takes all of the common ground, basically, between those two bodies, and it puts them all at one. Makes them into one body. So there's that, and now I can mirror this, and for the plane, let's see, I'm just gonna page through these. There we go. That's more of what I want, is I want this base YZ plane. You could also just click on it, so select reference, click on it. You can see though, so I actually need to mirror the body, not the actual feature. I don't actually know how to do that, but I know that a good way of doing it is pretty much just in the feature tree here. So I just clicked on the pad, hold down Control, and then select the last feature. You don't want to select your sketches, so that's why it's important to have, you want to have these things collapsed. Now I can click mirror, and I will click select reference right here. Okay, that. And that gives us the shape that we were looking for. So I will get my info toolbar now. I will click on the body. And there is the volume. Let me open up a calculator real quick. Paste that in there, times our density, which is 7,800. So that is our mass, except they probably want pounds, yep. So we can convert that to pounds, times 2.2, 4.9192, round up to 92. And that should be the answer. And yeah, so that's how you do it in FreeCAD. Some things are pretty cool, pretty powerful. There's some things that are obviously limitations. They're not the most intuitive thing ever, but I encourage you to give it a try.